and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike.
And I'm Matt Freeman, and I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride it where I like.
We ended up inadvertently having to take last week off, Matt, because as people can probably hear from your voice, you're a little under the weather right now.
Yeah, I'm not doing the best, but, we're back anyway.
We are back. We're back and better than ever.
Well,
we're back. This week on the show, it is another one of our patron-produced episodes. Folks who pledge to us on our Patreon account, that's patreon.com/doofmedia, at the Doof Warrior level or above, that is our $20 level, get to select a short story or a movie for us to do an episode of this podcast on. This week, our longtime patron Mistfist asked us to take a look at the 1948 Italian classic Bicycle Thieves. Or Matt, what's it in Italian? Do you know?
No.
All I know is biciclette.
That sounds good to me, man.
Biciclette. So we're going to have a full spoilers review of Bicycle Thieves. So if you have not watched that movie yet, well, it's been, 70 years? So I'm not going to feel bad about spoiling it for you.
If you were to start watching movies from like the first movie ever made onwards, you'd probably get there pretty quick. So.
Yeah. But so we're going to talk all about that. And then we're going to circle back. Matt, I'm going to finally, I've been like wanting to do this for the last few weeks, but we always have to push it. But I'm going to finally talk to you very quickly about why the hell I love the video game Hades so much. And
awesome.
then we are going to end the episode with me talking to you about a couple Sacha Baron Cohen movies that I've seen recently, because it turns out this guy is doing a lot of movies. And I think it's very fitting on the episode before our election that we talk about the two movies that Sacha Baron Cohen is in that talk a lot about modern politics in America.
All right. Sounds good.
Fun times, right?
Yeah.
But let's just jump right into it and talk about Bicycle Thieves. Matt, in Italian, please, what is this movie about?
In post-war Italy, a working class man's bicycle is stolen. He and his son set out to find it.
Wow, it's weird. I didn't think I was fluent in Italian, but I understood everything you said there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that I was fluent in Italian either, but it just spilled out of me.
It's amazing. You have a little Italian in the blood, a little bit in the blood, and you can just speak it fluently.
That's all it takes.
It's actually, I feel bad for all our listeners right now since they can't understand us at all.
Yeah, and I mean, I watched the movie, and the movie was in Italian, and I still understood it fine somehow.
I understood every little bit of it.
Yeah.
This movie was directed by Vittoria De Sica and written by, a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screenplay by credits on this movie, 1 story by credit for Cesare Zavattani. And of course, this movie was based on a novel by Luigi Bartolini, I believe. Sorry. But that's a lot of screenplay credits. I wonder if that's just a product of what the film industry in Italy was like. That, I think there are a bunch of, trade regulations and rules for American screenplays and the Writers Guild for how crediting works. And perhaps Italy just has a little bit of a different system. And so it was a writing committee.
Yeah. And I think maybe the story had to be kicked around a bit, because my understanding is that Bartolini did not really approve of the movie. He wasn't happy with it. Like his character is like a middle-class banker, and the themes of the story were totally different. He said it was more about I forget the phrase that he used, but like it wasn't really about the plight of the working class man. And so the story is really quite changed, other than the motif of there being a bicycle, I guess.
That's fascinating. That sounds like a completely different story, because that the plight of the working class man is this movie. Like, you could literally call the title of the movie "The Plight of the Working Class Man."
I think it might have just been more like it's interesting, because after thinking about it, I was like, well, it would also be interesting to see like a wealthy and secure person be brought down to the point where they're stealing a bicycle. Like that's a different story than this.
Yeah,
though.
That's a very different story. That is like the rich gentry class, like being taught a lesson about what it is like to be poor, where this
Yeah.
is just, this is poor. This
Yeah.
is, yeah. And I guess that's a good place to start with this movie, Matt, because I guess first, what were your overall thoughts on the Bicycle
Oh,
Thieves?
I was very surprised, just in a number of ways, I suppose. So, very, very old movie, from a different culture. And when I saw, okay, 1948 Italian movie, this is going to be something where I'm going to have to kind of, overlook some things, overlook some
Mm-hmm.
roughness or some things that like we just don't do that way anymore, and whatever. And I was surprised at how modern a lot of things felt, how modern the story felt in many ways, how modern the filmmaking was in many ways, except technologically, I suppose.
Sure, sure.
Um, the camera work, the way it felt, I think, yeah, and in terms of whether I liked it, I did enjoy it. Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I actually think that people who are curious at all about film should watch this, because apparently it's this very important movie in terms of how film evolved. And I think
Yeah,
maybe you have more to say about that. So yeah, what were your feelings about it?
I do. Yeah. I really, really enjoyed this movie. I think, the word that I would use to summarize kind of what you're circling around there is just watchable.
Yeah,
This is an intensely just watchable movie, especially now. It is, we joked about it's been almost 70 years, but this does feel like a modern movie. This does feel like a movie. It is not a movie that feels of old Hollywood, of sets and bright like max lights, and very collected and uniform and neat
yeah,
and staged and choreographed. Like, it is not that type of old Hollywood feeling at all. This movie is, you know, basically the poster child for what is called Italian neorealism, which is a film movement in post World War II Italy. And I mean, the easiest way to describe what neorealism is just to say Bicycle Thieves, because like this movie defines what neo. It is not the first neorealist film that Italy produced in this time period. I think that is a movie called Rome Open City. But Bicycle Thieves, I think, is the most well known and well regarded of all of this Italian neorealism movement that happened in the 40s to early 50s. And basically, all it means is shooting on location, telling stories from the perspective of, as you said, the working class, of the lower classes, using extras that are not professional actors, shooting around real people in real locations, really kind of more guerrilla type filmmaking, more on like dirty type filmmaking. And that is absolutely what this movie is. And it's funny because I I've read about Italian neorealism, but I'd never seen this movie. And so this felt to me like something I've been meaning to cross off my list forever. And whenever you sit down to a movie like this, I think, just like you said, there is an expectation here that you're going to have to like gear up for something that is going to maybe be a harder sit, because it's older and it's important and it has that importance to it. But no, this was just an easy, enjoyable watch for me. Really
yeah,
liked it. Really liked
yeah,
it a lot.
yeah. It was like, oh, they figured out all of the stuff, not all of the stuff, but like so much of the stuff that we almost take for granted now as like this is kind of just the way that you make movies,
Yeah, yeah.
um, shooting outdoors, not relying too much on sets, if possible, right? If
Hmm.
possible. And kind of having like these naturalistic performances. Obviously, in a Hollywood movie, every actor is a professional actor. That is not the case in this movie. But what this movie does do is it has these very kind of underplayed naturalistic performances from everyone. There's
Yeah,
not like you were saying, in contrast to old Hollywood. Like in old Hollywood, you think about melodrama. You think
yeah.
about big musical swells to punctuate every moment, and like dramatic camera movements zooming in on the character as the thing happens. And it's like, yeah, but there's kind of still a place for some of those things in modern movies, actually. But
Hmm.
we've really, I think the human animal, frankly, just enjoys more
Yeah.
watching this kind of thing where it's just like it's subtle, it's restrained,
Yeah.
It's naturalistic. Everything it's naturalistic in every way.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, this is I guess that's why this movie is popular. Is like this is when they figured all of that stuff out, and it just clicked. And
Yeah.
it ended up making an extremely good movie. And the story's great too. It's kind of a wonderful, like, I don't know what word to use to describe it, because it's like a story where nothing happens, but that's not fair either. Like that makes it
Yeah.
sound way more boring than it actually is. It's like,
It's simple.
yeah,
It's simplistic
yeah,
and I mean that in a good way, because I think it allows the messaging of what the movie's trying to do really shine, because you're not trying to pick apart the plot. You're just paying attention to, like, I think it very quickly becomes, okay, I see what this movie's doing. As our character wanders through a market, into a church, into a brothel, all while chasing these people that have stolen his bike. It becomes very apparent, like, what the movie's trying to depict and what the movie's trying to show us.
yeah,
So
yeah,
and yeah, so I mean, I think one of the other big things about neorealism, of course, is the inherently political nature of the films made during this period. That's not to say like movies before Italian neorealism weren't political. Obviously, they were, but I think neorealist films like are political by design, right? This is a movie that is talking about what it is like, what it was like to be a citizen living in a post World War II Italy,
yeah,
and the hopelessness, the horribleness of the living conditions, and just trying to exist as a human being in this time.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really takes its time, and in doing so, it really gets you to kind of soak into the desperation of this character. Where we meet him, and basically the first thing that happens is like he's given hope. It's like, oh yeah, you can.
yeah,
This is you got a job. This is great. Like look at all these other men who you're waiting around with. None of them can get jobs. You get the opportunity to have a job, um, and it takes the time to introduce you to his family, introduce you to what he cares about, and show you how happy he is, how hard he has to work just to get the bicycle out of hock so that he can use it for the job. And like the whole time, I mean, I don't know. It's funny because I don't know if I'm only saying this because I'm aware of 70 more years of tropes than people were when they saw this movie, but like the whole time I'm like, okay, well, he's going to get the bike stolen, obviously.
well, yeah.
And
When the title of the movie is
yeah,
Bicycle Thieves, you
right.
make that
And
assumption.
but then I was also, as soon as the bicycle was stolen, and like almost immediately I was like, yeah, and then he's gonna steal a bicycle. Like that's what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen for them in the movie. Like it's,
Yeah, yeah.
but what's funny is like I think when the movie came out, that was like an emotionally harrowing twist, and I was just like, no, it's just the kind of movie this is, obviously.
Sure, sure, sure. I mean, I love, like, the Italian name for this is Ladri di Biciclette, which is bicycle thieves, right? But with the popular title for this movie in America is The Bicycle Thief, which is very interesting because, like, bicycle thieves, you can say, like, basically every character in this movie is a
Yeah,
bicycle thief, right?
yeah,
But the American version of the title is almost saying, like, this is about the bicycle thief, and you're obviously saying our main character here is the bicycle thief. Like, this is the origin story of the superhero, the bicycle thief.
that's great. Yeah, no,
um,
there does seem to have been a lot of debate over this title, but yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I like there's so much interesting stuff to like, especially in that beginning. I think you're right that this wonderful moment with this crowded street corner where these people are just begging to work. Like, they just want jobs. They're not begging for handouts. They're begging for work. And yeah, he's blessed or wins the lottery or rolls the dice or whatever to get a job. I think the part that most impacted me at the very beginning, and made me realize that I'm really going to like this movie, is when they go to trade in their blankets to get enough money to get the bike out of the pawn shop. That
yeah,
they've pawned the bike for food, and then the week after he's pawned the bike, he got a job that requires a bike. That the only way you get this job is if you have a bicycle. And of course, we're not going to provide you one because fuck you. And so they go to get the bike and they give up so they have no more sheets or blankets on the bed. They've given up their sheets or blankets because that's just life for them. It's like, it's more important to have the hope of income than it is to be warm at night. And there's this wonderful shot where they've haggled with the guy for an extra 500 lira, and he gets the bike out, and I think they got 7,500 and the bike costs 6,100. So like they have no money, basically. They have no money left, like just barely a little bit of money. And we watch as he's waiting for the guy to get his bike out. We watch as the man that he's just sold his sheets to walks by the frame and then walks over to this the warehouse behind the glass door and then the pawn shop or whatever it is. And we see this man climb up shelves, and the camera does this really wonderful pan as it pans upwards, and we see that the shelf is just covered in bags of sheets and clothing and blankets. Like that yes, they took the blankets from the guy, they gave him some money, but like, look at all they're just sitting here. They're not doing anything. It's just the surplus of blankets. And now these people, just so they can get work, won't have a blanket. And we have thousands of blankets just sitting here in the storage. And I think that is an image that is repeated again and again throughout this movie, because as soon as he gets his bike stolen, there are bikes everywhere. I think they put, like, I don't think there's a frame that goes by where we don't at least see in the background of a shot someone riding bike on a bicycle.
Yeah, right. You're right that it happens, especially after the bike is gone. You're like, everybody's got a bike. There's bikes everywhere. And you know, that at a certain point when it starts to be a temptation, actually. And you're like, oh, you just take one of these. These people aren't using them. It's not that important to them.
Well, that's I think the most important thing about one of the messages of this book is that the surplus exists. It's there. There are enough bikes for everyone to have a bike. There are enough blankets for everyone to have a blanket, but we're just not giving them to people. We're just like, and it's just like the most tragic thing about this movie to me was that this guy looks at this bicycle as a symbol of hope, as a symbol of him getting his family out of the situation they're in. Like, I remember when he's like, right after he gets the job, he's thinking about the money and he's thinking about all the things he's going to be able to do. It's like, we're going to be able to pay off all our bills. We're going to be able to start putting money away. We're going to have this life that I didn't think possible, all because of this bicycle. And it's just not true. Like, it's just like, you'll eke out a living. You'll eke out maybe a little bit of a better living than you had before. But like, the system is inherently broken. I mean, the reason why your bike was stolen in the first place is because there are hundreds and thousands of desperate people on the street that will do anything they can to make it. Meanwhile, there's a big shelf full of clothing and full of blankets.
Yeah. I mean, in the terrible historical moment that we're sitting right now, I was just thinking like, yeah, this is what it looks like when an economy breaks down. Like everybody loses their jobs because there's no work, and there's no work because everybody's lost their jobs, and thus they don't have any money, and thus they can't spend it. Like, it's a terrible, like, how do you get the machine started again, you know? And in the background of the movie, as we go through, like, there's these political meetings, and there's like, you know, there's the guy, like, obviously our protagonist doesn't care about that at all. He's just trying to find his bike.
Yeah, I mean, that's isn't that the wonderful thing? I'll let you finish your thought, but like, he keeps wandering through all these important events and these important things, and he's not focusing on any of them. I mean, like, the moment where he follows the old man into the church, and basically this church is just like, everyone's coming to mass, but like, everyone's there because they're just giving people a meal. They're just feeding these people. And like, he's totally ignorant to this whole thing going on because he's so singularly focused on getting his bike, getting mine. And I don't want to call this guy selfish, although I think because I understand his desperation. I understand his need, but like, it is amazing the ways in which he treats everyone else and everything else around him as entirely expendable and totally indifferent. I mean, none better than how he treats his son, right? Like, the way he treats his son throughout this movie is remarkable because it's awful.
Yeah. Well, that's the saddest thing about it, is that the movie very, you know, slowly and meticulously breaks him down in that way over the course of the movie. Because like, at the beginning of the movie, you're like, oh, he's got this great little son, and he obviously loves his son, and he takes care of him. He's a good dad,
Yeah.
and he's actually really polite to people, and like him and his wife have sort of a low key way of bickering, but it's nothing that makes you dislike the guy. Everything about the
Yeah.
beginning of the movie makes you like him, see him as patient and polite. Even when the bike is stolen, he's actually pretty polite to the police, even though they can't help him.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just as the movie goes on, he becomes more obsessed and kind of deranged, and he's like harassing the guy in the church loudly enough that everyone's like, please just get out of the church, you're
Yeah.
ruining the mass.
In a
And
church. In a
yeah,
church. Yeah.
and he doesn't
He,
care at all, and then he chases and he slaps his son, which
yeah.
is, for me, that was a big, like, that was like a punctuation of like, that he would never do that normally because of the
Yeah.
way his son reacts.
Well, and I think there's the more subtle moments with his son too. Like there's a moment when he's crossing a street and his son is crossing the street behind him and he's like a foot or so behind him. And this car comes like just roaring around the turn and almost smashes right into his son. And then his son like sprints off running to catch up with his dad. And another car comes from out of frame the other way and almost smashes into the kid. And at no point in the movie do we cut to the father's reaction to his son almost getting hit by two cars. At no point. Like it's just he's already ahead. He's already on the next mission. He's already the next point, the next thing, the next step
Yeah.
in his process to get his bike back. And it's like he didn't even notice that his son just almost died. And that's like I think that's just really powerful. Just the way they framed that shot just tells so much of the story of this relationship between father and son.
Yeah. It's interesting. I really like that you pointed that out, because now I'm remembering the time where they were running out of the rain. The son trips and just kind of wipes out into just a puddle of water,
Yep.
and he's all
Yep.
wet. And he doesn't notice that at first, but then when he notices it, he gives his son like a handkerchief to dry himself off. So like it's a
Yeah.
sort of a token gesture of like, oh, I see that, he didn't notice when it happened, but he's doing something about it now that he has.
Yeah.
And then eventually even that sort of level of concern, I think, drops away.
Yeah.
And it's basically until, I mean, I think that's part of what makes the end even more heartbreaking, is that it's totally his son that saves his ass,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
his son is weeping for his father, and the guy whose bike that he's stolen at the end sees this, and he's like, okay, I see the situation. He's not going to press charges. He lets him go.
Yeah.
And then the son is holding his hand as he just kind of like stumbles along, like clearly stunned and lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, you love the son so much. He's such a
Oh
great,
yeah.
like the movie works because of this little boy. It's
Oh,
great.
he's so fucking adorable.
He
This
is.
kid, Enzo Stiola, I think is his name. He's like the most adorable little kid ever. Um, and I think like there's that moment where you think perhaps he's drowned, right? Because
Yeah.
he just leaves his kid by the side of a bridge because he's got to go chase down a lead. And then when he returns, like all we hear is the kid, he's drowned. And we're like, oh fuck no, you're not going to do this to us now, are you? And like I think that does serve as a moment of realization for Antonio, right? Where he thinks that his son has died and he's like, oh, I've fucked up. I've messed up a little bit. But then he's like drawn in again by the opportunity to steal a bike of his own. And you're absolutely right that it is his son that saves him from this. And I think that the interesting thing about that is, again, like the man he stole the bike from looks at his situation and takes pity on him. Whereas Antonio was shown directly the situation of the person who stole the bike from him, because that kid that he does encounter late in the movie is indeed the kid that stole his bike.
Right.
He doesn't have evidence to convict him, but like it's the same actor, it's the same guy. That's him. That's him.
Yeah.
He had him, but he can't prove it. But we get to see that kid's life experience too. We go to see his house. They live in this tiny little basically one bedroom apartment. There's a bunch of them that live there. They have no money as well. They're just as desperate. There is a point where he like has a seizure, and our main character just assumes he's faking it to get out of it. And there could be some truth to that. We don't actually ever know, but that's his immediate assumption. He takes no pity on this kid. He takes no pity on the old man who was attending church just to get a meal.
Yeah. Right. Well, and we've seen that the guy who stole the bike gave the old man money to take care of himself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like clearly this, I mean, he stole the bike. Obviously that's not great, but now
Hmm.
he's using the bike to get around to give money to I suppose his loved ones, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah, this is just a chain. It's like a
Hmm.
chain of misfortune and people becoming so desperate that they do something really terrible, and then it just moves on down the chain. But yeah, I mean, you could also think like, well, that guy is probably unemployed partly because he's epileptic or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
makes it impossible for him to have a job even if he wanted one. And that's the sort of crank that turns and grinds people up when there's a devastated economy like this and there's no
Yeah.
safety net at all.
Yeah. It's tragic and awful. And I mean, like, I think the end of the movie is like nothing was resolved. I mean, I guess the only little bit of hope you can get is that father and son, head home together. He's like, instead of his son trailing 2 feet behind him, they are like walking hand in hand, or I think he's got his like arm on his shoulder or something. So like, you could make an argument that he's recognized A, how lucky he just got, and B, how important his son is to him. But like, he's gonna go home and not have a job again.
Yeah.
Um,
And not have a bike and not have any
yeah,
sheets.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting because I read one piece of critical commentary on this movie that was like the interesting thing, the unique thing about it is that we're not witnessing a crisis, we're witnessing the aftermath of a crisis. Because
yeah,
when we meet this character, the guy handing out jobs says his name, and he's not actually in the crowd of men. He's just
yeah.
like sitting on the ground like 50 yards away, and
Yeah,
like
someone
one of
has
his
to go run and get him, right? Yeah.
yeah. And that's interesting because it's like, well, why was he doing that? And I think the answer is like, well, we're just meant to understand this guy's already given up in a
Hmm.
sense. He's
Yeah.
he is the blast wave has already hit him and knocked him down. And this is a second chance. This
Yeah.
is a possibility, but in the end, it just puts him right back where he was at the beginning.
Yeah. And it's so heartbreaking too. I mean, I love the way this movie shoots the morning of his first day on the job, right? Like he gets up bright and early in the morning, and this is a completely black and white movie, but for some reason, like I don't know how they did it, but they put like a sheen on the lens in the early morning sun as they're all riding out. Like he gets in with this pack of poster people that like their job is to just put up posters around the city. And like there's just hope, and he's like so proud of his uniform and his hat, and it's so cruel because you just know the bike is going to be stolen. And I actually thought, I don't know if you felt this way, but like there's a moment where his wife is going to that one lady's house, the
Yep. Know what
and
you're talking
he
about.
yeah,
Yep.
he gets like, he's really curious about what's going on and gets pulled into the house, and you're just like, dude, don't leave your fucking bike. Like, this is it. This is when the bike is going to be stolen. He's going to walk
Yeah.
away and he's going to come back and the bike's going to be gone.
Well, I felt
And
like this. Yeah, I felt like the movie, like the framing was like the bike in the foreground and him walking away up the stairs and leaving the bike, and you're like, no,
yeah,
the bike.
and the frame slowly shifts as he walks up the stairs, and slowly the bike disappears from the frame, and like as soon as it's out, you're like, well, that's it, the bike is gone. And then it didn't do that, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh, okay.
yeah,
Whew, good. I do like that, like he made fun of his wife for going to that place and wasting their money on praying to this woman, or trying to get a fortune. Was she a fortune teller? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I think she's supposed to be like a basically a
Yeah,
fortune teller. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And then of course he goes there, and like not only does he go there, but he cuts in line because my problem is more important than all this
yeah.
giant line of people's problem.
Right. Which again is the sort of thing you'd feel like he wouldn't do toward the beginning of the movie, but
Yeah,
he's just
yeah.
such an asshole by the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just like the movie asks the question is what turns a person into a bicycle thief, right? Like what turns a person into this guy? And we start the movie seeing the kid who jumps up and steals his bike as the enemy, and by the end of the movie, he is that person. And it's kind of remarkable how easy it is. Like it's just, you take a desperate person, you give them a ladder, and then you take away the ladder, and you see how quickly that person can turn into
Yeah.
um, a bicycle thief.
I thought it was interesting how the movie actually made me kind of want him to succeed. Actually,
Yeah, yeah,
at the end, you're like the coast looks clear. Those
yeah.
women on the balcony are gone. Everybody's
Take the
gone.
bike. Yeah,
Yeah, go for it, go now, go now. And then as soon as he touches it, it's like people just come out of every corner. You're immediately aware, like, he's caught. Like he's just
Yeah,
immediately caught. It's not even a question, and you're
it
just
is
like,
pretty incredible.
yeah,
Yeah.
it,
It's
yeah,
like it's so quick and immediate that like you could argue it was a sting. Like that's
yeah,
how quick it happens. That yeah, there's like nobody there, and suddenly like 30 men pour out of a door and are just chasing after him.
yeah,
I do think
yeah,
there's something, there's something to the idea of community going on in
uh-huh,
this movie though, because like every time he starts hassling someone that he feels is responsible for this, that person is surrounded by family member and friends that are helping him and protecting him from this mean man that's accusing them of being a thief. That happens again and again, right? Like
yeah,
when he tracks down the old man, it's the people in the church that are like, get out of here, get out of here. When he like goes into the brothel, all the women in the brothel kick him out immediately,
yeah,
and he almost brings his kid into the brothel. He doesn't even care. That's wonderful.
yeah.
Um,
The neighborhood
yeah,
of
when
the
he goes into the
thief.
neighborhood, like all the neighbor, like his entire neighborhood, as just like, how dare, like, who do you think
Yeah,
you are? And then, of course, with the theft at the very end, the same thing happens. And then, as you said, the thing that saves him is his family, is his community, is his son. And you wonder, like he goes off on his own so quickly. He starts with like a team of people, right? Like when the bike first gets stolen, he goes to his friend and like they've got this team and they got this plan, but then he's just off on his own. And I wonder if there is a message of strength and community, defeat in isolation and individualism in this story.
yeah, sure. I think so. I think so because he does. It's interesting because like he kind of gets his posse together at one point to go try to find the bike,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work, but I
Hmm.
think that's just because the movie is sort of like, look, dude, you're not going to find your bike. It's
Hmm.
gone. Um, yeah. Uh, I was thinking, I keep thinking about, and I can't really work out why I'm thinking about this aspect, but like I kept thinking about the fact that he does go to the fortune teller eventually,
Hmm.
and then she tells him her fortune or whatever is like, either you're going to find it immediately or you're never going to find it. And then I guess, okay, yeah. So I guess I'm trying to like work this out. So like, what happens? He goes out there and then like immediately he sees the thief. That's what
Hmm.
happens. And then he follows the thief, and you're like, oh, she was right. He's going to find the bike immediately. Um, but then in fact, he follows the thief, and the thief is defended by his people, and he doesn't get the
Yeah.
bike. So
Well, because the bike's already gone. Like the bike's just it's like it's been either sold or broken down into parts or what have you. The bike is gone.
yeah,
Like he's never gonna get the bike back.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean it's so funny because that's not like a fortune.
right,
Like that's just like advice. Like
yeah.
that's kind of the same thing his friends told him. Like if you don't find it right away, you're not gonna
Yeah.
find it.
Well,
Um,
I love the fortune teller. I love when she's like the guy, like one of the guys before him. She's talking to this man, and she's like, um, if the seeds won't grow in this soil, then plant them somewhere else. He's like, I don't understand. She's like, if there's no growth happening here, plant the seeds that you have elsewhere. I don't understand. You're a very ugly man, and she doesn't love you.
she's great.
Yeah,
She's really great. Yeah, it's there's so much to love about it. I really was delightfully surprised because I do think there is this perception of movies from the 40s that are either going to be like the Capra-esque It's a Wonderful Life type thing, or these great elaborate Hollywood numbers. And this was just completely different. And I think it's rather fitting that the last Patreon produced episode we did was on the movie Brother, which I think is a movie that you could argue took a lot of ideas from neorealism,
yeah,
from this film movement,
yeah,
and I think that is why that you're right that this movie is so well regarded and so well remembered and so loved, because so much of popular cinema going forward, like I mean the idea of the French New Wave is basically taking Italian neorealism and then going, okay, but French. And the French New Wave was hugely influential on American films of the 70s and basically helped jumpstart the independent film movement here. And I think that has carried forward into now.
Yeah.
This is still like a lot of the most famous either independent or auteur filmmakers that you and I talk about all the time right now look at Bicycle Thieves and say that's a hugely influential movie on me. That's the type of movie I want to make.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. Yeah. I mean, just like, because there's this tendency to think like, oh, 70 years ago, people were just different.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, I don't think they were actually. I think that the way that most of those old movies were filmed was in a very stylized way.
Yeah, yeah,
And when you get a more naturalistic movie, you see like, oh, people have been like this pretty much forever.
yeah.
Um, and what do I mean by like this? I guess it's just like they don't behave in these weird artificial ways that you see them behaving in old movies.
Yeah, I mean, like the mid-Atlantic accent of early Hollywood is exactly that. It's an
Yeah,
accent. Like this is something that all actors at the time were taught to talk like this. No, people didn't actually talk like that in real life. That's just a performance tool. And
yeah,
yeah, there were a lot of movements in film realism that were much more naturalistic type of acting style. I mean, this eventually led to the Marlon Brando type style.
yeah,
To that kind of acting, but it was incremental. It was films like this that really started to move towards that movement, and films like this with stars who were really just amateur players. Like nobody in this movie. I mean, I don't recognize any of them, but I'm not like up on my Italian movie stars. But like, I don't think
well,
anyone in this movie was like a superstar.
I think even the stars were nobodies.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that one of the criticisms that I read was, from one of these other, neorealism directors criticized this director and said you shouldn't have dubbed over the lines of the main character with like an actual actor, because apparently they did.
yeah. You
And
could
you can
tell
tell
that
that
in some
everything is,
places too.
yeah, you can tell everything's dubbed over, right? Because
Yeah, well, I
that,
mean,
yeah,
I think that's a symptom of shooting on location at the
yes,
time, right? The microphones just weren't as good, and you
right,
couldn't isolate noise enough to where like the dialogue would just be incomprehensible.
yeah.
You had to ADR everything.
I think we can barely do that now.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, ADR is still a thing now, obviously.
yep,
So,
yep.
but apparently it was, he got a professional actor to dub over the guy's lines, and that was breaking with the spirit of realism. And so the point is, like, yeah,
Yeah,
like even the star was, which is really, I think, pretty remarkable. Like it's not like it's an amazing performance. It's just like he serves perfectly as kind of your person. You have, your everyman that you can connect to,
yeah.
and you can watch this kind of deterioration, and it's not like it's overly dramatized, but it's there,
No, yeah, it
um
works. It's
yeah,
simple. It's reserved. It's humanistic. It feels like a person, not a performer.
yeah, yep, yep,
Yeah. I think the only thing that I really wanted to talk about that we haven't touched on yet is the scene where he like is desperately trying to make it up to his son for smacking the shit out of him, and so he takes him to this restaurant to eat a meal, so they can like live like normal people for a moment. Um, I adored that scene because it's like it's amazing how quickly both of them feel uncomfortable in this restaurant. And like he's trying to live it up, and he's like, I want a whole bottle of wine and a mozzarella sandwich. And you look over, and one of the things the little kid Brunar catches up on immediately is this obviously upper middle class family, or maybe even just upper class. I'm not even sure that are eating there, and like they clearly eat there all the time. And he's watching a little girl who is like eating very properly and daintily of her very expensive meal, and it just really draws the line that like, oh, we're not like these people. We can come into this restaurant and we can blow some money and try to blow some steam and drink a whole bottle of wine, but we are not like these people at all.
yeah,
It's really tragic.
yeah. The movie really kind of plays with you, because you hope like, well, maybe they'll have like, maybe this will be the nice kind of happy scene where him and the boy are able to bond, and it's like, no, the movie even uses this opportunity to show
Yeah.
you like, no, you can't really have this, like you're spending money you don't have, and now you're getting drunk, and you're probably going to just get even more like un, you know unhinged as you get drunk, right? Like he can
Yeah.
kind of the movie one very like sort of minor and I don't even know how I would fix this kind of criticism that I had is like I lost track of time very much so in this movie. Like for a while I was like, so is this like day 5? And it was like, no, this is the same day. I was like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, it's the same day somehow. I get it. And it made after I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, yeah, it has to be the same day because they never went home. But like, yeah, like he drinks the whole bottle of wine by himself, basically, except for like
Hmm.
the boy has a couple sips, and then the rest of the movie happens after that. And you're like, okay, well, he's got a bottle of wine in his stomach, so that might be
Yeah.
part of why he's behaving this way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I was kind of worried, like, this is probably totally ridiculous of me, but like, nobody was saying any prices and he's just ordering all the stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, does he have the money to pay for this stuff?
sure, I was thinking about that too. I was like, yeah, I was
Are they
like
going to end up like just sprinting out the door when they realize they don't have the money for it?
I mean,
Yeah.
I seriously thought that was going to happen. Like, I thought they were going to get the bill and it was going to be, as much as the bike or whatever,
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
he's trying desperately. Like the most tragic thing about this is like his son clearly looks up to him so much, right?
Yeah.
Like his son loves his father and looks up to him, and he feels useless and incompetent. He feels like he's letting his son down. Like that they're gonna have to go home at the end of the day bikeless, jobless, and he's let his son down. And so this is a moment where he's like desperately trying to show his son, look, I can provide for you. Look, I can take you to this restaurant. We can have some mozzarella sandwiches and we can drink some wine and we can be people and I can provide that for you. And he really can't. He's spending money that he barely has in the first place, and they're still so incredibly different from the people sitting at the table right next to them. It's awful. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
And that's at the end of the day, that's the tragedy of this movie is that even his small little job and his small little dream is not going to solve any of the actual problems. And it's only just like it's this horrible spiral of just the poor people fucking over the other poor people.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a great tragic movie. It still works. It's pretty amazing. You can see why it's so influential.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty amazing that like obviously this was a huge thing going on in post World War II Italy, where, as you said, the economy had just completely collapsed and the government was scrambling to reorient itself after the fall of the Mussolini government. And like so, it is absolutely a movie of its time, but it is, on another sense, a timeless film as well. I mean,
Yeah.
there is this perpetual thing that every society deals with in its impoverished class, where it's like they are made to compete amongst each other for the scraps that are left. Meanwhile, there is a big giant warehouse full of blankets.
Yeah.
Enough for all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing that I sort of noticed but didn't know what to do with was like he's putting up Rita Hayworth posters. So there's some commentary on Hollywood happening.
Yeah. Well, and there is the moment like when they, right before he steals the bicycle, they come up on a soccer arena, right?
Yeah.
Football, sorry.
Yeah.
And so there's like thousands of people in this arena cheering and relaxing and being entertained. And meanwhile, there's this man outside where all he wants is his bike so he can do his job. Like that's it. That's all he's asking for here. And
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just these stark differences, these stark divides between classes that are just tragic.
Yep.
But yeah, I think there is some Rita Hayworth commentary there.
Yeah, I just don't. I'm not up on the neorealism scene enough to pin down exactly what the point of that is. But yeah, it's.
Yeah, I mean, I in my understanding, I think it's not like a shot across the bow. It's just like we're doing it better. This is a better way to tell stories. Yeah. This is a better way to make movies.
Right, and I mean, you could say like, is this really a good use of this man's time? Like, he's literally being paid. The only thing, like, desperate for work, and what is he doing? Is he building bridges? Is he building hubcaps for cars? No, he's putting up posters of Rita Hayworth.
Is he sewing blankets for people?
Right.
So
Yeah.
people can have blankets?
No.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. It's like it is his hope and it is his opportunity, but yeah, it's what is it? What is the job? It is
Yeah.
putting up posters of famous rich people.
Yeah.
Yeah. True. Absolutely true. Gosh, what a movie. What a
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. Really loved it. I mean, really recommend it. Honestly, I mean,
Yeah.
it's sort of like now that I've watched it, I'm like, I feel like I understand film more just from having watched this. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, there is like I've had this argument with Michael before about Citizen Kane, which is a movie he claims I don't actually like, which is not true. There is this feeling you get when you sit down to watch an important film, where you kind of think, oh, it's being remembered because of its importance, not because of its watchability. But this is a movie that I think contains both. This is a very important film. This is a very influential film, but it's also just a very watchable movie. It's a very good movie. It's
Yeah.
it's paced well. It's entertaining throughout. It's just a good movie.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think like I honestly was thinking like if they remade this movie, I wouldn't change anything except for that thing that I said about like I lost track of time,
Mm-hmm.
and don't I don't even know what I would do to fix that. Like that just seems like a tricky problem, actually.
I actually wonder if that's literally just because of the black and white nature of the movie.
Uh-huh.
Like it perhaps in a Technicolor version of this film, you're able to tell the time of day a little bit more clearly, and so they could depict like the shift into afternoon and evening in a way that this movie maybe couldn't pull off in black and white. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just speculating
Yeah,
there, but
yeah, maybe so. If the time of day never appears to change, you just assume,
yeah,
oh, it's still this is noon, but the next day or whatever.
yeah.
We are sort of trained to go on those cues based on all the movies we've watched. So yeah, sure,
Hmm.
makes sense.
There's actually, I don't know if you remember, Aziz Ansari had a show on Netflix a few years ago called Master of None,
No.
and he did an episode in the second season of that is basically just Bicycle Thieves. Like he just did a pastiche of the movie. It's in black and white. It has Aziz in Rome, um, and he gets his bike stolen, and he's just like scouring Rome with this little kid he bumps into looking for his bike, and it's just a total pastiche of Bicycle Thieves. And like I watched that like knowing what Bicycle Thieves was, but I'd never seen it, so I immediately like went back and rewatched it, and it's just delightful. It really is.
That's hilarious. I want to watch that
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, that's a really good show in general. If anyone, I think they just did 2 seasons, and I think Aziz was like, "I'm done," but it's a very very good show. Master of None.
Awesome.
Should still be on Netflix, I think. All right, is that all we had for Bicycle Thieves? I think so. I think we talked that movie up sufficiently.
Yeah, I feel good about that conversation.
So now, finally, it's time to tell you, Matt, about my latest obsession.
Okay.
My latest obsession is a video game named Hades.
Yeah, you've mentioned this, but not gone into detail. So please fill me in.
So I guess before I get into this, what do you know of the roguelike genre?
I mean, my understanding of roguelike is that it's a sort of game where every time you play it, it's slightly different because there's a procedural element to either your character or the maps or the enemies. Yeah, that's kind of the general principle of it is my understanding.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
Games like Binding of Isaac, where you usually you go on like a run in the game, and you like get power ups as you go through the run, and you're in a procedurally generated world, and then you either die or you complete the run, and then it's over, and then you can do another run and try something else, and it's like it's infinitely replayable because every run is a little bit different. I usually don't like these games though, because I like constant progression. I am an MMORPG player, Matt, and I
Yes.
need my tiny drip fed progression cycle to make me feel like I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And so what happens with roguelikes is I get the game, and even when I enjoy the game, I just kind of play it and I do a run 3 or 4 times, and then I'm like, okay, I've seen the game, I get it, and it doesn't pull me in. That game cycle doesn't pull me in and keep me playing the game. And then Hades came out. So this game does things a little differently. So first of all, Hades is a game by a company called Supergiant Games. They did a game called Bastion. I don't know if you ever played that. It's a really wonderful game. They did another game called Transistor that Elliot and Ruben did for Game Club a few months back. I actually did not care for that game very much, but I liked Bastion enough and I liked the art style of these games enough that I tried out Hades. And what Hades is a roguelike or roguelite. I'm not clear on what the difference between those two things are, and I'm not interested in finding out. Like, it's one of those genre classification things that like people can get very serious about, and I just don't care.
This isn't real.
So, but the point is, you play as the son of Hades, and you are in the underworld, and you are trying to escape from the underworld. And so you pick a weapon and you walk out of your father's office, because the underworld in this game is like an office where they're doing paperwork constantly, and you battle your way up to the surface, fighting different bosses in a procedurally generated world, getting different boons from the different Olympian gods that you can like combo off each other in interesting ways. And the battle is, it's like an action based battle system. It's very fast and kinetic and fun. But the interesting thing this game does is it actually makes the roguelike portion of it part of the story. So basically, you find I'm trying to figure out how much I want to spoil it here, but like the story is you're trying to go meet your mom who's on the surface. And so you're trying to get out of the underworld to go meet your mom. And when you eventually succeed and you get up there, you're just like, "Hey, mom," and you talk to her for like 5 minutes, and then it's like, it turns out you can't survive outside the underworld and you die. And then you head back down to the very beginning, and you're like, "Oh, drag! I had more questions I wanted to ask her, and so I got to go do it again." And so what the game does is it makes the story part of the repetitive cycle, right? And I think there is an end to this game. I think if you beat it enough times, you see like the end of the story. And I haven't quite gotten there. I don't know how many times it is. But I think you will eventually see the end. But each time I beat it, I get another little scene, a little cutscene where I learn a little bit more about where I came from and what's going on. And there's some big thing happening that I don't have a full vision of yet. But it's so fascinating, and it's such a good way of taking this genre type and really saying, "Hey, we could tell a story with this." And I think that's really cool. And I'm not going to sit here and claim that like Hades is the first game that does that. I have not played every single roguelike in the world, so I'm sure there's probably another one out there that does a similar thing with storytelling. But I think it just takes this concept that I usually find boring and I usually get tired of very quickly, and it just pulls me in because I want to find out what happens. I want to know what's going on. What's going on with this dude's mom and his dad? What's going on? I need to find out. And so I keep playing and I keep playing and I keep playing.
That's cool.
And the other cool thing is it is a roguelike in that like each game you can choose a new weapon and you'll get different random upgrades for the weapon as you go through different rooms, and you have to make choices. Like after you beat the enemies in a room, you'll get 2 doors in front of you, and one will give you a certain kind of power up, one will give you money to spend at a shop, one will give you different currencies that you can trade in. And the game does have permanent progression systems. You get the stuff that you can go, and once you die and get back, you can spend the stuff to buff your character a little bit. And so there is constant progression in the game. So it's like marrying my MMO progression cycle to a roguelike type thing. And it's just crack for me. And so it's like, I've always understood the appeal of these type of games to be, hey, you can just sit down in front of your computer and you can play for half an hour and do a run. And whether you win or lose, you've like done a run and then you're done. I've never had that pull before because like, it just felt pointless to me at times. If it's like, oh, well, I fucked up and now it's a waste of time. But even when you fuck up a run, you've gotten points and things to spend and progression points and stuff like that. And it's really, really good. It's really good.
And so you think they kind of cracked the formula, at least for you?
For me, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So do the enemies get stronger too as you cycle through?
They yes and no. I mean, So there's this thing that happens once you beat the game or get to the end with a certain weapon. There are three bosses as you climb to the top. And each one of the bosses drops unique rewards. But once you've beaten it once with that weapon, they won't drop the unique rewards again, unless you go in through this other system where you can turn on modifiers that make the game harder. And if you turn on one modifier, you get all the rewards fresh again. But once you beat it again, then those go away. So then you need to turn on two modifiers, and then you can get all the rewards fresh again, until you beat it, and then three, and then four. So the game, like, at first the game starts to get easier the more you play it, because you get upgrades and you just get better at the game. But then as you get to a point where you plateau, and then the game starts to get hard again, because you're like making it harder for yourself to
I
get
like
the
that.
better rewards.
Yeah, see, because I was thinking there has to be an element where it also gets harder. Like that's to me the one, almost the one redeeming thing about roguelikes to me is like there's this one roguelike that I really like on the Oculus, and it's called In Death, and you're like an archer, and you're just fighting like endless waves of well, no, it's not really endless waves. It's actually terrifying. It's like it's scary is part of why it's fun. But like the point is like, yeah, okay, you as you play it more, you like unlock better arrows, and you like maybe get an extra hit point here and there. But then like the difficulty of the enemies you're fighting also increases, and so the consequence is that you just get better, like you just get so much better, like as a player. Like there's few games that just make me get better the way that roguelikes do, because you're like, well, you have to, or you're gonna die. There's no like, okay, I got the hang of this game, and then you just kind of crank through the game. You don't ever get the hang of it, because it keeps getting harder. It gets like impossibly hard, and your only real option is to get better at it.
It's interesting because like I totally agree with that, and I think a lot of people, when I've said to people that I do not like roguelikes, a lot of people have said, well, I mean, it might not have an ongoing like in-game progression system, but the ongoing progression system is that you just get better at the game, that you learn and grow as a human playing this game. And I would always go, yeah, totally, but like, what's the point? like once I've beaten it, like what's the point of going back and doing another successful run? And this game says, oh, well, let me tell you, here's this new cool thing and this other new cool thing. And don't you want to know what happens in the story? Don't you want to know why your dad did that and why he's stopping you? Why does he want to stop you from getting out of here? Don't you want to know? And the answer is, yeah, I do. And so I keep playing the game, and I've played 30 hours somehow. I don't know where all those hours came from.
Yeah.
Which I think for a lot of people, like there are people that put like hundreds and hundreds of hours in roguelikes. So like my 30 hours is nothing. But for me, that's a lot of hours.
I can't imagine putting that much time into something where you don't see a little number go up.
Yeah, you got to see those numbers go up.
If you don't see the numbers go up, what's the point of being alive?
Yeah. Also, like just generally, the writing is very good. The characters are very adorable. They're all like super, super horny. Like this is a super horny game, which really fits because it's Greek mythology, right?
Yeah.
Like all Greek mythology is just horny as hell. It's just everything about it is delightful. I love it. Hey, it's like one of the best games I played this year.
Awesome.
So that's Hades. I want to see more storytelling like this, where it takes the concept of the playing over and over again thing and marries that into the story in interesting ways. I want to see more of that.
Cool.
Do. All right, one final thing before we go, Matt. And sorry, this is going to just be me talking again. I'm sorry. It turns out I just created podcasts in order to hear myself talk.
That's fine. I'm just going to put on these sunglasses and lean back in my chair.
I wanted to talk to you about a couple movies I saw recently, and the first one I wanted to talk to you about is a movie called The Trial of the Chicago 7. This is a Aaron Sorkin film, who is a writer that I love. You and I have talked about Aaron Sorkin a lot because we talked about him when we were doing our David Fincher read through. We talked about Social Network, which is a movie we really, really liked. Aaron Sorkin wrote and directed this movie, and it's a really interesting movie. I don't know if you know about the history of the Chicago 7. I don't like it's something that a lot of people know about, but I knew it happened, but I didn't know like the details
I
of
feel
it.
like if you start explaining it, I'll get it. I'll be like, oh yeah, that thing, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So basically, in 1968, at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, there were massive protests um, against the war in Vietnam, and the protests broke out in violence when the police started beating the shit out of protesters. I mean, that's literally just what happened. And I'm not even like taking a stance on that. That's like literally the administration in charge at the time investigated it and ruled that the violence was instigated by the police. And then Nixon won the presidency, and then his attorney general said, no, we're going to reinvestigate this and put these 7 protest leaders on trial for inciting violence. And that's exactly what happened. So it's another trial story. You know, Aaron Sorkin did A Few Good Men. He's very good at these kind of trial movies. um I actually don't think the movie's that good, and I think it has some problems because I think Sorkin is trying to do so much here, and like I just like it's interesting because like moment to moment nobody writes dialogue better than Aaron Sorkin. So there are just like each individual scene in this movie is like some of the best work ever, but like the overall structure of this movie, I don't think ties together very well. There's some really weird choices in here. Like the movie opens with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, a man named Richard Schultz, who was the U.S. attorney that was trying the Chicago Seven, that was prosecuting them, and he's not really a character in the movie. I mean, he is, but the movie opens with him, so you think the movie would be about him, but then it goes away from him. We don't really ever go back to him, and I don't know why we opened the movie with this guy because he doesn't matter. Like, I just feel like Sorkin like tried to do too much, and the pacing of the film suffers for it. And as much as I love Aaron Sorkin as a writer, I do not think the man is that good of a director. There are like individual choices in directorial choices in some of the editing and blocking of this movie that I'm just like, I would have loved to see David Fincher do that. Or apparently Steven Spielberg was attached to direct this movie once upon a time, and like my heart burns for his version of the film. I think it would have looked incredible. Um, all that being said, I want to talk about this movie because I think Aaron Sorkin's doing something really interesting with this movie, and I haven't seen it talked about very much. And I
Cool.
think it's really fascinating.
All right.
So Aaron Sorkin is an institutionalist, right? That is one of the truths of it. He believes in the system, he believes in the power of the system, and he believes in the individual's ability to use the system to make positive changes for the world, right? That I think if you watch the West Wing, I think you will look at that show and you will see that belief in Aaron Sorkin. But I think this is a movie in which Aaron Sorkin is dealing with the fact that doesn't seem true right now. And that's where it's really fascinating to me, because when you break down this movie, what this movie is about is it is about a man named Abby Hoffman, who is played by Sacha Baron Cohen, who was a leader of a resistance movement in the 60s, very famous man. And he was very progressive, he was a hippie. And you have a man named Tom Hayden, played by Eddie Redmayne, who was a member of a school students association that was protesting the Vietnam War. And he is very much more straight laced, very much more. He believes in the system, and he's basically Aaron Sorkin. And so the movie is about these two characters who both want the same thing, but have very different methods of achieving it, that believe differently about the correct way to do it. Tom Hayden's character in this movie, and I don't want to say Tom Hayden himself because he's a real person and I don't actually know what he thought of what he thinks. But Tom Hayden, the character in this movie, is a person that believes in the system. He is in the courtroom, and he's always respectful. And even though the judge is like literally a monster, like Sorkin depicts this man as a monster. And if you look into it, he was in real life was a pretty terrible person as well. The awful judge who was like, every lawyer in Chicago was like, this judge needs to go. He's racist and awful and terrible. But the movie is about the character of Tom Hayden arguing with the character of Abby Hoffman about the correct way to handle this trial, about whether or not we be respectful, whether or not we are like are we the quiet type of resistance, or that respects the system and hopes to make changes through the system? Or are we the type of people who, like Abby Hoffman, just say the system is fucking broken, there's nothing we can do, we just need to scream until people listen to us? And it's fascinating because Aaron Sorkin is the former, and he's dealing with the fact that doesn't seem to be working. And that's what the character in this movie is going through as well. And so I've seen a lot of people talk about this movie and say, I wish this story of these people was told from the perspective of someone who was a little bit more of a protester, a little bit more in tune to the resistance type of thing. And while I understand that desire, because Abby Hoffman was an incredibly fascinating person who a different writer and director would have delved into a little bit more, this is just so essentially a Sorkin movie, because it's dealing with, like, it's his struggle to understand and figure out what he believes in a world where the way he believed things worked and the way he earnestly believed was the best way to do things doesn't appear to be working. And that's a fascinating lens to look at this whole thing at. I just, as much as I didn't like the movie for its pacing issues, watching a writer and a director that I quite respect like struggle with these type of things was really fascinating for me, and I really enjoyed that part of it.
That's cool. Yeah, my understanding of Sorkin, which is not as deep as yours, is that he's kind of at his best when he's struggling with something sincerely and he doesn't know the answer, and he'll have the characters take different sides on it, and maybe he won't come to a resolution on it because, hey, we don't always come to resolutions on things that we're genuinely conflicted about or confused about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that's always going to be, to me, more kind of rewarding than just like a didactic piece on, and this is how we should behave and be and do. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'm a grown man. I'm tired of that.
And I've seen a lot of criticism from people, about Aaron Sorkin and Aaron Sorkin's view on politics in the age of Trumpism. And
people are critical of someone's politics.
Okay, fair. But it is frustrating to me, not because I like feel the need to defend Aaron Sorkin and his politics. It is frustrating to me because, like, I think I see those people say those things, and then I see them watch this movie and repeat those things, and I'm like, no, but when I watch this movie, I see Aaron Sorkin like saying, yeah, you might have a point, guys. I think you have a point, and I'm trying to work through that. And that's what this movie is doing for me, is me trying to work through the fact that you might have a point, that in the 90s and the early 2000s, I believed in the political system in a way that I don't know if I can believe in anymore. And I'm trying to wrestle with that fact. That is a core tenet of who I am as a person. And it was displayed in my writing. And this movie is literally me trying to wrestle with that fact. And without spoiling the end of the movie, I think there is a moment in which the Sorkin insert character is not respectful and is not quiet and does not listen to authority for the sake of there being authority, and speaks out. And I think that is Sorkin coming to a conclusion. And it's, I don't know, it's just fascinating. And I think people are selling him a little short. That's all I think.
Sounds good. I haven't seen it, but I will wholeheartedly absorb your opinion as my own.
Well, great. That's the way we want it. And then the last movie I wanted to talk about was another Sacha Baron Cohen film. It was the second Borat movie, Matt. Borat is back.
Yeah, I'm going to have to watch this because,
you do.
I mean, Sacha, God, what is his name? Jesus.
Sacha Baron
Cohen.
Yes.
I mean, he is a genius. Like the stuff that he does, like all of the movies of his that I've seen have just been the most incredible things. Anyway, you've seen it now?
I have. And I will say that, like, some of the shock. So you've seen Borat, right?
Yeah.
The concept of Borat was basically like, we're gonna dress Sacha Baron Cohen up in this ridiculous getup, and he's gonna go film real people, and we're gonna basically like expose the horribleness that is just under the surface of real people. And the thing about that shtick in 2020 is, like, it's been around for a while. First of all, like, people are saying things that I can't believe people are saying out loud in general, but also, like, since like the Daily Show has been doing that for years now. Like I think when Borat first came out, that was a new novel kind of idea, and it was like genuinely shocking while also being very funny. It's not as shocking and funny anymore, but this movie is really surprising because it's actually this fascinating, heartfelt father-daughter story,
Yeah,
if you can believe it or not. Um,
sure.
so basically, what Sacha Baron Cohen realized when he decided to set out and make a Borat sequel is that everybody knows who Borat is. So he can't walk through the streets of America as the Borat character anymore. It doesn't work. So to solve that problem, he found an actress named Bria Bakalova, who I think is like a Bulgarian like actress. She's like an amateur Bulgarian actress. This is like one of her first big roles. And he hired her to be his daughter, and so she gets to do all the stuff because she's not recognized, so she gets to do all the ridiculous things. And so they hired her to do that, but then they constructed this story around their relationship, and it really affected me. Like I believe it or not, like yes, this is a movie like where we catch Rudy Giuliani doing some truly disgusting stuff. 100%. Everything you've read about that is true. But it's also this quaint father-daughter tale, and
Yeah.
I don't know, like I loved that part of it more than I loved the aren't Americans stupid parts of it.
Yeah, I can buy that because Borat had a story that I think actually worked, although it was obviously in the background.
Yeah,
And the Bruno movie, I forget the name of the Bruno movie, but
I think it was just Bruno.
yeah, I think Bruno also had a story that worked for me. Yeah, no, I mean it's I can't wait to watch. Like you telling me that actually makes me more excited because like
Yeah.
it means that he didn't kind of, I don't know if sell out is the right word, but like it would be easy to make a Borat sequel that was just like, hey, let's go embarrass some people. Like that's like, okay, I guess that could be good. But like to me, like it has to be funny. It has to actually be,
Yeah.
you have to actually care and connect to it and kind of buy the character, even though you totally know he's not real.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the first movie was. And that's, yeah, so that's good to hear. That makes me even more excited.
Yeah, yeah, and I will say the woman Maria Bakalova is incredibly talented. She's so good. She's like, I don't know where they found this woman and how they found her, but she is so good. And I hope she has a very very lucrative career because she absolutely earns it in this movie. She's phenomenal. She's some of the best laughs are coming from the stuff that she's doing.
Okay, great.
And so yeah, I mean, like there are moments, like it's a genuinely funny movie, and there are moments where like the absurdity of some of the things people are saying like makes you chuckle. But yeah, that was not the driving force of this movie for me, and that was very surprising. But there is a moment where Borat somehow gets into the a conservative conference that was happening in March, and he gets this really wonderful shot of Pence standing up on stage confidently saying, we have 5 cases in the US right now, and that's it, and we've got a handle on this. And it's just like, I see what you did there, Sacha Baron Cohen. I see what nice editing you did there. He's just like so cocksure and smarmy Pence is as he says that, and it's wonderful because we know he's wrong.
Yep.
Totally wrong. Yeah, it's like the politics of it are funny. I mean, like the Giuliani thing is disturbing. And like I don't know if you've read about it, but it's
I've avoided reading about it because I want to see it. I kind of want to be
good.
relatively spoiled or unspoiled rather. So
I do think like it didn't, like even reading about it, like I had the whole thing described to me in an article I read. Like it's one thing to do that, it's another to see it. It's really fucking insane.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean there's so many other really really great things going on in this thing. I think Sacha Baron Cohen is legitimately brilliant, and he's constructed another home run here. I really really enjoyed this movie. There are moments where it's like it has like the comedy sequelitis thing where like they're hitting previous beats again because
Yeah.
they feel like they have to. And then
Yeah.
those moments didn't work on me as well. But when it really dives into, like, I think the movie starts off kind of slow, but when it really dives into the new stuff, I think that's when it gets really great.
That's cool. Yeah, I never thought there'd be a second Borat movie. Like I thought it
No.
was like I thought that's why he did Bruno, and that's why he also has Ali G. Is like he needs a few of these characters because Bruno was an international, rather Borat was an international phenomenon. It's like
Yeah.
everybody knows who Borat, but like it's clever that they found a way around that. So that's fun.
Yeah. There's a scene where he goes into a costume shop to find a costume to disguise himself as, and like he walks up to a wall and there's a costume up there that says "Stupid International Reporter," and it's just a Borat costume.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
It's actually great that the movie just like confronts that head on.
Yeah.
The other thing it confronts pretty head on is that this nation of the nation like really Kazakhstan like hated him for doing this.
Yeah.
Like they banned
so
the movie there. Yeah. They were furious and embarrassed and they banned the movie. And this film confronts that, and I think that's really interesting.
Okay.
And also, apparently, Kazakhstan has changed their tourism slogan to "a very nice." So I think they've realized that the better thing to do in 2020 is not to ban the movie and be furious about it, but just kind of shrug and be like, "Yeah, okay, whatever."
Yeah, it's really great to see everyone understanding the Streisand effect and internalizing it.
Sure. So that is Borat's subsequent movie film, or the other title is Delivery of Prodigious Bribe to American Regime for Make Benefit of Once Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan, which was the original title. And then everyone realized that was too long.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So that's those are my political movies of the 2020 election. There you go.
Sounds good.
I just can't believe they made this movie in secret in the middle of coronavirus. Like they started filming this in April, I think. And nobody knew about it until they announced it like a month ago. And it's just crazy.
That is kind of amazing. I guess I didn't realize that was true until you just told me. But,
yep.
Cool.
Yeah, so you can catch Borat on Amazon Prime Video right now. And The Trial of the Chicago 7 is on Netflix. So watch those. That's all I had, Matt. That's the episode. I'm done. Right. I'm done at last. I'm sorry that it became the Scott Talks into a Microphone podcast for 20 minutes or so.
It's okay. You gave my voice a rest.
There you go. It's just because you're sick. I was doing it for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So that's all we had for you folks this week. If you have any opinions on The Trial of Chicago 7, Borat 2, Hades, or of course, Bicycle Thieves, I hope some of you will try out Bicycle Thieves after you listen to us talk about it. And let us know what you think about it. You can reach us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over at our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, if you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to do that and ensure you never miss an episode, even if I sometimes do because I'm sick. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
Yes, and you can find this and all of our shows over at our website, www.doofmedia.com. That's where you can find, let's talk about Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing is our weekly writing prompt podcast hosted by our partners and friends, Matthias and Jarvis. Every week they release 4 new words, and the goal of the podcast and of the exercise is to pick 3 of those 4 words and to spend just half an hour writing a short story using those 3 words. It's supposed to be just really quick. You don't have to worry about quality because it's only half an hour. It's just an exercise to kind of just get you in the mood for writing. And what Matthias and Jarvis do is they get on a podcast and they kind of talk about the words, and they talk about the experience of trying to write it, and they talk about writing in general. So if you are a writer, if you like writing, I think it's a fun thing to not only listen to but participate in.
If you've never tried it, I really, really suggest trying it as an exercise. Even if you're not a writer, I think that you'll learn something. I pretty much always learn something when I do the 30-minute exercise.
When you do the right thing?
Exactly. Exactly, Scott.
And if you like Do the Right Thing, and if you like the Doofcast, and you want to support Matthias and Jarvis, or Matt and I, or other friends, Clarence, Elliot, and Ruben, you can become a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford. Every cent, every microcent, every lira that you donate to us goes right back into our company. It keeps us continuing to make new content and keeps the lights on and the electricity on. You need electricity for podcasts. I don't know if anyone told you that, but you need it.
No, that's what I've been doing wrong.
Yeah, and I need a bicycle to get to my studio.
Yeah.
So help me get that bicycle.
Yeah, mine was stolen actually. So
let's go get it back.
Yeah.
This episode right here only exists thanks to the wonderful generosity of our patron, Mistfist. So, Mistfist, thank you so much for supporting us, and thank you for recommending this movie. Like I said, this is one that's been on my to-be-watched list for far, far, far too long. It is amazing how you can read an entire book on neorealism and then not watch the movie. But that's what I did. But thanks to you, I have finally crossed that movie off my list, and I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I was genuinely surprised at how much I enjoyed this movie. So I really appreciate that.
Yep. And one more quick plug. If you're listening to this on the 30th of October, the day that it came out, later tonight, we will be having our monthly book club at 9:30 p.m. Central Time over on our YouTube account. So if you want to join us to talk about the book, The Likeness by Tana French, you can join us there. And we're going to spend a couple hours just talking about this book and reading about it and all fun stuff. I love our book clubs, and it's happening on the 30th, 9:30 p.m. Central Time. See you there.
Yeah. Also, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, because every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
Yeah, except for that one person that gave us a 1-star review last week. Don't do that. That was mean.
Yeah.
You made me cry.
Yeah, you hurt our feelings.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's okay, because I got over it very, very quickly. Okay, folks, next week's episode is going to be another of our Council of Doof episodes. We've had to kind of shift our schedule around because of Matt's illness, but he's back, baby. But we're going to do another one of our Council of Doof episodes because of our shift around. We haven't actually selected a title for that episode yet. Our council is voting on that right as we speak. So we will announce that once we know what film we're going to be talking about next week. We'll be announcing that on our Twitter page. So please make sure you follow us on Twitter at Doof Media to learn what movie we're going to be talking about next week. And Matt, you too, because you have to watch it. So
that sounds important.
Remind me to remind you to do that.
Okay.
And then after we Council of Doof, Matt, it's time. It's time to talk about Del Toro. So November is going to be our Guillermo del Toro beginnings month. I'm excited.
Me too.
All right, folks, we will see you next week for the mystery movie.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.